What does fitness do to help amplify your overall wellness, how you try to progress in your daily life? And I'm a full believer that wellness is an active process and not a passive process. I think wellness is the striving for. It is an active process of betterment. And that betterment could be in the wellness wheel, right? There's emotional wellness and spiritual wellness and financial wellness and physical wellness. Like there are all these components that create this wheel.
Welcome to this week's Escape Your Limits podcast. Our guest today is the winner of the Idea World Personal Trainer of the Year. He also co-founded RēCOVER, where they help individuals to restore their body and reboot their mind within a 5-star recovery experience. He also hosts one of the most popular podcasts, the NASM-CPT Podcast, where he takes listeners on an informative and engaging journey to help establish a solid foundation in their fitness journey. Today, he shares his thoughts on the transformation of personal training over the years, the latest research being adopted by personal trainers, and his latest thoughts from the field of recovery and mental health. So please enjoy this episode with the Idea Personal Trainer of the Year, Dr. Rick Richey.
Mr. Rick Richey, Personal Trainer of the Year.
That feels good.
Yeah?
That feels good, yeah.
This is a nice little thing that you've got going on.
I know, it's fancy. It's also a weapon, apparently. But it's really, I'm delighted. I'm absolutely delighted. I told him, so what I said as soon as I got up there, I love being a personal trainer. Like, I love being a personal trainer, and I don't think I could deliver any other message better than this is one of the coolest gigs in the world to have.
Right.
Yeah.
What's kind of, how long have you been doing it now?
I started in February of 2002.
2002.
So just over 20 years.
And what about it sort of gets you up in the morning? Like we talked just before it, you've been through all kinds of stuff, landlords and everything. But what through that, what kind of keeps you getting up in the morning and being excited to do this?
Well, that's what I tell people. Initially, when I started in fitness, I didn't it was a free gym membership and it was a cool job, but that's not what keeps you. Like it doesn't stay cool, it turns into a job, right? And then you have the floor hours, and then you have, it's 5 hours of training, but it's a 15-hour day because you don't have time to go home in between, just the way it stacks up. So, you don't stick with it because it's cool. You stick with it because you help people. And so I don't believe everybody starts in fitness to help people, but I do believe the ones that stay in it because they're helping people. And that, I think, is really the anchor for so many of us that do this for a living.
Would you say that the role of a personal trainer or what they need to be thinking about has changed, obviously since you've been in it, but as what's happened in the last few years kind of accelerated any changes that you've seen in terms of your role and responsibility as a trainer, coach?
I just think there are more opportunities based off the devastating lack of opportunity that took place. And then people found ways, it's the evolution, it's like a societal evolution. We made changes, we pivoted, which was like the key term for the last couple of years, but those pivots do a couple of things. They provide access for people who didn't have access being able to come to a gym. And I think that's important. There's some research out there that talks about the inability for just safe places to be active, to go outside and go for a walk, but you have a safe place in your home, and now there are opportunities to receive fitness services in your home, right? So people have access, and so not only do you have access as somebody that receives that, the personal trainers, the fitness professionals now have different avenues where they can explore. I didn't do anything virtual before. My clients were so uninterested in what a virtual session would look like, and now they ask for it because it's what you do now. It's what you do. So I'm here. When I traveled, I was like, hey, I'm not gonna be doing any virtual sessions, but when they travel, I'm like, hey, you need to do your virtual sessions. And they do, and they like it. Let's get an hour of just get my heart rate going before I work or before I go into vacation with family, but there's opportunity, and the evolution of fitness will continue. And I don't know what it all looks like yet, but but this has created an avenue that's only really exponentially grown to allow this to be a couple years old. So in the next 5 or 10 years, I think the landscape's going to look totally different, and we're going to have a lot more opportunity to deliver.
Right.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of interviews from operators and some even manufacturers, and we've seen connected fitness, and we've learned a lot about, I suppose, people who run fitness businesses and some of the challenges that they've been going through. I've not spent a lot of time understanding the psychology of the trainer, and I'm just being here over the last couple of days, I'm starting to sort of see that they're almost been in a very different world to what other people have been. So I'm just curious, how would you explain the sort of some of the key things that a trainer's gone through that are fairly generic, that everyone that's been a PT has had to think about, you know, when they came into this pandemic and when they're in the middle of it and now they're coming out? What's been top of their mind? What's been their focus? And I'd just be interested to sort of, you know, paint a little bit of that picture, because we talk a lot about other people in the industry, but I've never really sort of understood that journey.
Yeah, I think it's very much like anybody else. As a business owner and a personal trainer, and my businesses, so my gyms, rent space to personal trainers. So I'm very much interested in what's going on in the mind of personal trainers. And for a long time, it was survival. Like that was the number. So whatever it took to survive. And for some people, that meant, I'm based in New York, right? So that meant I have to leave the city. Like I just can't keep doing what I'm doing, where I'm doing it. I have to leave. There are other people who said, okay, well, I'm going to go online. I'm going to do this. So it was survival, but then this was a very interesting thing. Then they started just producing content more, right? Because they wanted to still do what they were doing, even if they weren't doing it with somebody one-on-one. And isn't that like the ultimate, like the heart of a passion, is that you're doing it even though nobody's paying you for it. It's like, I just want to do this and I want people to consume it. I want to provide. And people started providing. And then companies were like, stop providing for free because now you're discounting services and stuff. But that was just what they wanted, right? So survival was a part of it too. And then taking then the survival aspect and the content aspect and then start to turn that into a financial means of making money. So being able to monetize that. And of course, there were a slew of apps and web-based things that provided that. What they didn't have, and you know this, was equipment in their homes. And the price of equipment, my business partner at my gym just became like a side hustler, equipment dealer that would he was being charged an astronomical amount because the inventory was so low. And then he charged to deliver it and send it to people. But like people wanted equipment and they didn't have it. So there's an example of somebody that just said, look, I don't have a job, but I'm gonna find a way to get my clients the equipment they need. And as he started doing that, you know, more people need equipment and like life finds a way. And that's what everybody's doing. They're scrounging, they're fighting. And I think for me, like somebody that sits across other people in interviews as well, to see like an ant colony, right? And you see the glass and you can see the tunnels that are being built, but there's like a hub where they all were. And then these little strands, these little tunnels that go in different directions, but it's all the same business. And so when you see some of the interesting and very circuitous routes that are sometimes taken in this industry, it's a means of finding a way to continue, finding a way to survive. And people are doing it. I think it's delightful to see what's been happening. This pandemic, which was awful. I don't want to discount that, but it's accelerated what would probably have happened decades from now within like 2 years.
Yeah, I've seen that across all different areas, actually, that acceleration, which I guess is a good thing. You know, it's probably got rid of a lot of things that probably have been hanging on that needed to get rid of.
I agree.
And it's probably created some innovation that people probably wouldn't have done unless they had to do. Staying on that point then, as a trainer now, with, I guess, a very I would say probably a much bigger market to go after. People are less, we talked to Raf earlier, you know, that people used to come in and it's like, okay, I want a six pack and I want to look good for this, lose weight, etc. Now there's people that are like, okay, I just need to be healthy because I don't want to catch whatever.
Yeah.
Do you find that the role, the opportunities, but also maybe some of the skills of trainers have evolved or need to evolve to take advantage of this sort of new marketplace that's out there?
Yeah, I think they have evolved and they continue to need to evolve. One example is like people know virtual exists, but they don't know how virtual exists, right? So there's education. So that was the thing, like there were platforms, but nobody knew how to use them. And if you did know how to use them, you didn't know how to get your business to be able to actually apply that. So that started, and so I also work for the National Academy of Sports Medicine and helped create content for a lot of things. So virtual I did not do, but then we started looking at really what you were talking about. It's not necessarily six-pack abs, but people are coming in to be healthier. They're coming in to, the word wellness continues to come up over and over. And we'd talk to fitness professionals, personal trainers, and they would say that we're wellness professionals, but they're not. They're not. They're a piece of it, but when you think fitness is synonymous with wellness, then you don't know what the full extent of wellness is. So fitness, and NASM created a wellness coaching program. So now you can really look into it and say, this is an opportunity to work with people with fitness on their wellness. But what does fitness do to help amplify your overall wellness, how you try to progress in your daily life? And I'm a full believer that wellness is an active process and not a passive process. I think wellness is the striving for. It is an active process of betterment. And that betterment could be in the wellness wheel, right? There's emotional wellness and spiritual wellness and financial wellness and physical wellness. Like there are all these components that create this wheel, and they all need to be built out pretty equally and pretty balanced in order for the wheel to roll without clunk, 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 right? And so we might look at the fitness and we build that out really well, but if, as a wellness coach, then you say, okay, well, how do we use that to amplify your emotional state? How do we amplify that for maybe like where you are financially and physically and how you feel about that? So can I use fitness, which is the avenue, that's the vehicle I use in this kind of wellness arm to address everything else? But it's not the only way, but it's the delivery tool that I use to help wellness take place. But I do want to separate that just because you are fit doesn't mean you are well.
No, and that's an interesting thing. I've seen a lot of clubs. I kind of draw this pie thing, which is kind of what I like. You use the wheel, which is a great example. But I think fitness clubs in general have done a really good job, and they're really focused on that. And but the challenge of that, and with trainers, is that it's very competitive, or it has been. Everyone's kind of going after the similar thing and telling the same similar messages,
right,
more or less. But I think now there's definitely awareness in terms of, well, you go into your fitness club and it's like, oh, well, actually, I kind of need all of this stuff. And part of that is what you guys were pioneering. There's the recovery element. There's the mental health and wellness and a number of other elements to it. So it seems as though what we all used to focus on was a small part of a bigger wheel or a bigger pie, which is great.
Yeah.
How do you, as whether you're a trainer, operator, business person, how do you then start to think about going after those other wheels? Because you can't, I guess it's difficult to sort of specialize in all of it.
Yeah.
But with your NASM hat on and your trainer hat on, where now in this new world do you start to sort of navigate putting these different pieces together, getting the right education to do that, and make sure that you're sort of, you're moving in a useful direction?
Right. So I think this is a really interesting thing that you're talking about. And one thing to be sure is that as a fitness professional, even a wellness coach, you're not answering everybody's questions. You're not there to fill out the entire wheel, right? People have their spiritual advisors. People have financial advisors. I'm just like a wellness component of it, right? But there's a researcher named Barbara Fredrickson, and I love the work that she does because she works in positive psychology, which has exponentially grown in the last decade. And in one of her research papers, she talks about something called broadening and building. I like this concept, but it is better described as upward spirals. And so we kind of do things where if something bad happens, fitness clients, this is a great example. If something bad happens, they're like, well, I can do that, so I might as well do nothing, and I might as well eat this and forget everything, and it's a massive downward spiral. And so we just try to like change the framework a little bit. And I'm like, well, what did you do? What was the little thing that you did? And then build on that, because a lot of times, let's talk about weight loss. All right, let's talk about obesity, because obesity is a metabolic disorder, right? So I would talk about obesity, and people come to fitness and they say, oh, I need to lose weight, and the doctors, physicians send you to the gym, and they tell you have to do all this stuff because you need to lose weight. And I don't think that that's what you need to do. I think that it can be helpful, but the most helpful thing is to be more active. So here I am talking about your weight, very uncomfortable to hear this information about my weight. I may already be uncomfortable with my own self in that position, and I'm being told to do something that I've been trying to do for years. So you're just telling me what I already know, but what they may not know is just be a bit more active. Like, movement is medicine. And if we can inspire people to movement, and we can get them to take these small doses of movement, and then they take that small dose, and instead of saying, me walking my dog isn't enough to lose weight, it's not the point. Stop with the weight loss. Start with the movement. You don't get to the weight loss before you do those little things anyway. And even if the weight loss never comes, the dyslipidemia will come, or may come, right? The metabolic disorder starts to be somewhat mitigated and blunted because of your physical activity. Physical activity and movement is the medicine, not the fat loss. It's the movement. So move, be active, and that's what I want. And then take the little things that you do and build on them and create the upward spirals. Don't look at it and say 10 minutes of walking isn't going to save me from this. It's not. But 10 minutes of walking is more than no minutes of walking. And so I tell my clients all the time, a little bit of something's better than a whole lot of nothing.
Introducing the next big thing in functional training, the Escape Barrow, a revolutionary training tool that combines a loaded farmer's carry with a sled push to develop hip, grip, and core strength. Developed in partnership with Pete Holman, inventor of the TRX Rip Trainer and Nautilus Glute Drive, the Escape Barrow can be rolled, pushed, dragged, and carried. The Escape Barrow packs a punch with an impressive load capacity of 440 pounds, and with a two-stage galvanized paint covering process, it's also ideal for outdoor use. So head over to escapefitness.com/barrow. That's escapefitness.com/barrow to find out more. Enjoy the rest of this episode.
I think that's a great point. I think people are starting to look at that and talk about it a little bit more. But don't you think, as an industry, that we're also part of the problem in some respects, where it's like, okay, well, what kind of programs are we selling? How are we marketing ourselves? If you asked probably 100 people off the street, what does a personal trainer do and what happens in the gym, and describe that, we know what they would say, and that probably isn't what they necessarily need. You said the walking example, and there's probably a lot of smaller things in between walking and a reasonable workout, but I suppose even people who work out quite regularly don't need a really intensive workout. They just need to kind of get a little bit of sweat going and get some movement. But it seems as though we're not telling that story. We're not telling the story that, look, you need to get fit. I don't know what even how you would describe it, but there seems to be a real disconnection between what people should do and how we explain that, and how we're marketing ourselves. And either you end up in a program that you shouldn't be in because you're probably going to do a lot more damage. You're going to break down your immunity.
you're right.
You're going to pick up all kinds of whatever. Or you're going to just sort of give up because it's too difficult.
That's the one I'm most worried about. I'm most worried about the giving up because we look at the HHS recommendations for activity, and this is WHO as well, 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity weekly, and that's the low end. So it's 150 minutes to 300 minutes is the recommendation. And I'm now telling you, these are the recommendations, and you're saying, I'm currently at 0 minutes. I do no minutes. So 150 minutes is so stratospheric. It's so far beyond what anybody's thinking about, but we're looking at the recommendations, and we have to balance out what are the recommendations and who am I having a conversation with? And I don't get to 150 minutes unless I get to 15 minutes. Like I need 15 before I get to 150. and they're looking at the 150 going, well, that's so far away, and 15 minutes is so far away from 150 that I might as well keep doing 0. And that's where sometimes we need to take the 150 just off the table, the standard recommendations, and they're there for a reason. And one of the great things there's a book called Exercised by Daniel Lieberman. It's my absolute favorite exercise book I've ever read. It is absolutely delightful. And he basically makes the comment, he was like, if you're the person doing 0 minutes and you start doing 10 minutes, that 10 minutes is so much more beneficial for you than it is for anybody else. Because that is so much more than what you currently do. So don't look at it and say, that's not enough. That's so much more. And don't think about, am I breaking a sweat yet? Don't think about, am I doing all of these things that we perceive as not fun, as difficult or challenging? And let's go back and walk the dog. And just maybe walk the dog around the block a little bit further the next time you go, right? Or we always hear, like, take the stairs instead of the escalators. Get off early on the elevator and take a flight of stairs. And the reason why that's so important, and people don't do it because it doesn't sound like it's enough.
Yeah.
And yet, we also know that the majority of calories that we burn every day are at rest. Doesn't mean that's the best way to burn calories. The active calories we burn are through regular physical activity, not through exercise. Even with regular exercisers, you burn far more activity by movement throughout the day. That NEAT, the non-exercise activity thermogenesis, how we burn calories by moving. And so the recommendations I give are just don't sit as much.
Do you think also it's like, okay, you've got your recommendations and it's like, oh, I've ticked that off, but do you think it's also more about creating a habit of like, okay, 3 days a week, because you do a lot on psychology, and in some cases it's creating consistency in a habit that you can continue to do. So even if you did 5 minutes exercise for a year, it's better than doing 1 month of it. And it seems as though in health clubs, so many people just fail to develop any kind of habit, even just like getting up in the morning and walking up and down the stairs once a day. As simple as it is, if you've got that habit, like you say, the upward spiral, you can then maybe do something else and something else. I just feel we're focusing on the wrong thing.
Yeah, and I love this because so from a coaching perspective, I don't want to set up your habit. I want to work with you for you to set up your habit. Right, so I don't want to tell you Monday, Wednesday, Friday, this is what you're going to do. I want to find out what you're willing to do. And then I'll say, all right, well, what do you like doing, right? So let's get this out. And this is coaching strategy, not personal training strategy, and yet this is a personal training award. But the coaching strategy is, all right, now that you've committed, tell me how many minutes a day you're going to do what you already enjoy doing, right? And you mentioned 5 minutes, right? So the moment you mention 5 minutes, people look up and they go, 5. And the first thing that they're going to think is 5 minutes is not enough. And the words that come out of your mouth are 5 minutes, that's fantastic. What makes you think that you can actually achieve the 5 minutes? Like, that's great. And so what they start to do is talk about all the reasons they can. Now, if I said 5 minutes, why only 5 minutes? Then they're gonna spend the rest of the time talking about why they can't.
Right.
So I wanna ask why you can do something, even if it's not much. What is empowering you to be able to do that? So you've told me what it was. You told me how long you're gonna do it. You've told me what the activity is. You're telling me, I'm just coaching it out of you. I'm trying to have a conversation to get it out of you. And once we get that information and we write it down, then we keep having conversations about it to see if they're happening. And then see what you enjoy about it and what you liked about it. And just as, acknowledge that there are things that you may not enjoy from time to time, and then see if there needs to be pivoting that takes place. Do we need to look for something else? Do we need to do less time? Do we need to take a day off the table? What are the things that we need to do? What do you feel comfortable with, right? And having them deliver what they can do, because most people do much better at goals they set for themselves in this environment than they do by having somebody tell them what they're supposed to do.
Right. Yeah. I think that's interesting. Do you think, as an industry and being part of NASM, are you seeing any new things being developed that kind of, I suppose, try and move us, an industry and professionals, more down the direction that you obviously spend a lot of time thinking about this? Are there now programs and personal development opportunities to get better at being able to coach that sort of stuff alongside what you do as a fitness trainer?
Yeah, there are. So NASM, and I'll speak to them because they're the reason that I'm here, right? I've been working with them since 2006. They developed a certified nutrition coach and the certified wellness coach. And so what they've done with those two things is that, first of all, allow personal trainers to have conversations about things that they don't normally have conversations about, but they know they need to. And it's less about I hate to say less about the nutrition, it's more about the coaching. Like, you have to learn the nutrition, but it is a coaching course. It's a coaching course. How do you learn this conversation between you and another person to provide guidance to now make application for all that nutrition stuff that you spent time learning, or all the wellness stuff that you spent time learning, but you knowing it doesn't mean they receive it. So the coaching part is the valuable part. And it's all evidence-based, and we have some of the best researchers and educators that are out there in the space of those two areas that provided these programs. So it's not just, it's not just a few heads in the back of NASM going, all right, we're gonna do this, and then they write all the content. We find the people that are already doing it, and doing it at a top level, that have the RCTs and have the control groups, and they have all of this stuff, and they do the studies, and then they apply it to young people, usually university students, and figure out how to make these applications take place, and then start implementing the behavior science part of it as well. To have those conversations about coaching, which allows us as coaches to do things where we don't have to be licensed to have conversations about it, but we do need to know where the line is, where you no longer need to solely be having a conversation with me. A licensed professional needs to help you with something, and we delineate what that looks like as well.
Are you seeing any other new areas that are becoming popular, or things that with NASM that you feel you may need to develop to fill in a gap in terms of how things are evolving? Is there anything, or even as a trainer, is there any things that you feel that this is something I've really got to get into and learn more about, because it's it's going to be important in terms of where my business is going? I
think so. I think that we're seeing that that fitness is starting to realize that social media needs to be talked about. And I think fitness discounted social media for a very long time, for some good reasons, but also sometimes just it's dismissive, right? Because there's somebody that looks good and has this following, and they don't have my education, so I'll poo-poo on them and what they do to make me feel better about myself and my education and my lack of followers. So I think NASM looks at it and goes, there's a valuable way to actually market, the valuable way to monetize the the people that follow you on social. And so I do believe that more and more there will be content out in NASM and many other providers as well but not social media people that are coaching it and mentoring it. And I think there are a lot of people out there that do a great job. I think fitness is going to start creating that as well. And I'm not saying NASM's doing that, I don't know, but one thing I love about NASM is they used to do this, which is, I think people need to learn this and develop content. And they don't do that anymore. They go, you tell me what you want to know. Tell me what's out there that you want to know. And then if we're not doing it, we'll create content if there's enough demand. And that's how the wellness coaching came about. That's how the nutrition course came about. So I do like that they're not sitting back there dictating what we think you need to know.
And I think that's sort of goes into my last point. You've been very involved in this. You've been podcasting for years, way longer than I have. In fact, we did a podcast with each other, and
we did.
We talked about it in the Everlast studio in New York many years ago. I don't know how long ago that was, but it must be, the role of a trainer must be different to what it was in 2002, where you have some of these very well-educated professors and doctors that now have their own podcasts, and they're looking at some of the latest research that probably most professionals don't even have time to figure out what's going on. And they're saying, well, look, this is some new research. This has changed. I gave recovery as an example. This is brand new. This is kind of how and when you should use recovery in relation to this, that, and the other. How do trainers almost like remain relevant when the consumer is empowered so much by listening to stuff? How do they play a part in one maybe saying, well, yeah, that's interesting, but that may not relate to you, assuming that they have that level of knowledge to be able to do that. Right. And two, is it a case of they've got a niche down and say, well, I don't do that, but I am going to stay up to date with this sort of narrow field of expertise. So, where do you see that? So you, as a trainer, being involved in ASM, also as a podcaster that's putting some of this stuff out there, how do you make sense of all that? And what should we, as fitness professionals, be thinking about in terms of dealing what's going on with this sort of massive information that's being put out there?
This is really fantastic, and I don't want to keep you here all day. So I'm going to try to limit what I talk about. First, I want to talk about an informed consumer. We have, in general, much more informed consumers, people that are receiving fitness, right? So they listen to podcasts now. They listen, like I do the NASM-CPT Podcast, Certified Personal Trainer Podcast, and I have people that aren't trainers listening to it so they could talk to their trainers about what their trainers may or may not be doing. Like, they are informed, right? So even I had a podcast episode that talked about, the trainers, it is important to continue to learn because your clients are doing so. So if I have informed consumers, and an informed consumer can shine the light on charlatan trainers. And so for that reason, I appreciate informed consumers. But there are also still many trainers that I don't want to get CECs. It's all a sham, it's just a money grab. And I don't need additional information. Like, I learned this 20 years ago and this is still the same. And I'm like, it's not the same. And you're very experienced if you've been training for 20 years, but you're not very educated. And I don't ever want to discount experience. I think experience is vital, but with education, you bring your experience to that, which is why education lands different on everybody. It's different. It's like reading a book, and a book that you love, and you read it a second time. You're like, I never knew this part, and I never knew that part. Or I can listen to my colleagues teach a course that I've heard them teach and that I've taught myself thousands of times, and listen to that person teach it again and be like, oh my gosh, that's so good. So how am I, that have been doing this for a long time, always amped up by sitting and hearing something I already heard and already know, and there's somebody else that is going, no, I don't want to learn anything else. So I think our job is to inspire people to want to learn. And And sometimes those people are not in the fitness industry. And I think that's cool, right? So now I've got people from the outside, the informed consumers, that are holding the fitness professionals' feet to the fire. So when somebody asked me years ago about intermittent fasting, and I never heard what that was, I was like, I don't know. And I dismissed it initially until I heard it a second time and a third time. And I'm like, I better look this up. Like, I need to know what this is talking about because people are talking about it. So being in the conversation and know what people are talking about, but also don't just rely on Rogan for your information. Like, I love him. I think he's great, he's super entertaining, and he brings a lot of stuff to the surface. But I think that there needs to be an additional amount of vetting of content. And even Rogan will say, like, I don't know. Like, what do I know? And he's right, like, and he's smart. I think he's very smart, but he brings on a variety of people, and some of those people have evidence-based stuff, and some of those people have really cool talking points that aren't based in any evidence, and in fact can be dismembered by the body of evidence that is out there. So where do you get your content, and then and realize that those conversations other people are going to be having because of the massiveness of the platform, but now learn more about it.
Is that where someone like an NASM, or without sort of saying a specific brand, but is that where, as a trainer, you need to say, right, okay, I'm going to have to align myself with a progressive organization that is going to be aware of, okay, everyone's talking about intermittent fasting, everyone's talking about cold therapy, and then you align with an education company that their job is to say, right, well, we're going to go out, everyone's talking about this, and we're going to do a lot of that work and kind of help at least you answer those questions because we're progressive and you're progressive and we need to kind of work together. Is that how you think things will have to change, rather than the provider that's like, okay, well, we've got this course and it's pretty similar. We're not addressing all these things, but that's what you do as a trainer.
I think a lot of people, I think there are people out there that follow organizations that are reputable, whether or not that's NASM or ACSM or ACE or NSCA. Like, they're all fantastic, right? I love them all. Or the Harvard Review, right? There's great content, but also journalists do that stuff, and they're like, normal, normal, normal. Oh, that's an anomaly. Pull the anomaly, amplify the anomaly. And then without pointing out that it's the anomaly, and they want to point out, like, this is something that's in research, let's bring something else that's just unusual to light. And that's what we like. We like, oh, what's next and what's new, right? And I think that's fair. You have to appreciate that, but you can't just read the abstract. Like, there's data within the paper that's going to tell you why the abstract is read the way it is, right? Like, how was it set up? Who were the participants? So if I'm working with 18-year-old males that are in college, but I'm working with 65-year-old women that have balance training, that study in my population I work with, there may not be any similarities of how that gets delivered, right? So again, the body of evidence, not what about this? Because people like to say, like, here's the data chart, here's the scatter chart right there, and there's the little dot over there, and they're like, let's focus on the anomaly. And you can't do that. You have to look at the whole picture. It's like a Seurat, right? Seurat, little dots, little dots, little dots. But if you never step back, you never get a visual of the entire painting.
Fantastic. Well, look, thank you very much for your time.
A pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
And congratulations on the award.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, then please go over to iTunes and subscribe to the Escape Your Limits podcast. Leave a review, leave a comment. It really would help us a lot to continue to keep these going.